All right, as you know, I have to record this, so I'm going to go ahead. I've got my Yeti now, so it will actually record everything that we are actually saying this time, which I've had problems in the past with audio, so I won't get into that a whole lot. All right, so originally I was going to tell you that I was going to do the other, let's go ahead and I'm going to actually do the other PowerPoint instead of this one. So let's see here. Let's start in this one. And nope, that's the other one. All right, so it's actually quite easy that what I'm going to show you here. Some of this stuff is going to be pretty straightforward. You'll see I have a number of different things that I want to show you. Things like data file shortcuts, copy with insertion point. A lot of people have asked for that before. It wasn't there. It's been added now. The difference as far as SolidWorks assemblies, some auto reporting, how things update, revision clouds, you know how CAD can always do revision clouds. Well, electrical finally can do revision clouds as a drawing without you having to do arch to arch to arch to arch to arch to arch, which is absolutely great as far as I'm concerned. Panel properties, some show attributes, propagation of I/O to the wires and terminals. That one is actually pretty huge, especially when you're doing PLCs or any type of frequency drives where you are actually trying to push data from your existing controls down onto the wires and the terminals. Before you were having to do everything manually. Now you can actually do it with a one-button push. You set up what you want to push, and it then populates for you. We've got some additional color stuff going on, and then we'll get into the cable core naming. I'm going to go ahead and just open up the electrical software here, and let's get started. So let me unarchive a project to begin with, so that way I'm not actually jumping into something that I've already been doing some testing with. And the first thing we are going to look at is this data file shortcut. So the data file shortcut, as you know, when you are doing the software, one of the things that we had before was that you could automatically add data files. And when you added those data files, you could bring them into the software and utilize them inside the software as if they were a separate entity. So you would have the live document maybe somewhere else, like in your EPDM. Maybe it's for like your frequency drives. Your frequency drives have specific parameters for a form that you would fill out, and then you'd want that specifically for this project. Now you could always store that in the project, but what they have now is that you can actually set it up two different ways. You can have it that way where it's a separate entity in the software, or you could have it as just a hyperlink now, so that the live document is actually just referenced to the project. But yet when you archive the project and are sending it off, you could actually add that file in at that point in time. So it will capture that live document. So here is what I am referring to. So when you're in the document tree, here, you can create new things in your book by just going to the File, New. And here you'll notice under Data Files, we have Data Files and Data Shortcuts. The data file is going to grab a specific piece and actually put it in the drawing set so that it is now part of the drawing set, separate entity, it's a copy of. However, when you do it the other way here with the new shortcut, what that is going to do then is just create that hyperlink. You can see the difference is just that it's creating this hyperlink here. It will still open it up for you, but at the same time, that drawing is being the original. It is not a copy of being put in the project. Make sense? Okay, so that's the first one. It's very straightforward, not too much to it, so let's move right on to the next one here. The next one is copy with insertion point. So the copy with insertion point, we've always had the copy feature. The copy feature was something that was not, in my it had a little bit to be desired as far as I was concerned, because anytime you actually copied things, if you just highlighted it and copied it, you had a problem when you were pasting it where it was on your cursor. It just kind of shows up in the middle of nowhere. You didn't have control of being able to slap it onto existing wires or anything like that. What we have now is that when you go ahead and make a copy, instead of doing a standard copy, you would right-click and do a copy with Insertion Point. You can then select where you pick that up. Once I then go ahead and do a paste, now the paste is right where I ask it to be on the cursor. It allows for so much easier control, especially when you're trying to grid snap something. Before, you had it just going off into left field. You don't have that issue anymore. So that's where this copy with Insertion Point is giving you a lot more flexibility with being able to copy even very large things. Because, of course, when I am copying, you know that we have the macros. But now if I am creating, and this takes you into another aspect which is not shown in a whole lot of the What's New videos. We have a new thing which I don't even have listed in my things here to do. We have a new thing called, it is an Excel automation. Anybody heard the term before? No? Excel automation is allowing you to create once you've created a project, you can create that project and then make every piece into an intelligent macro. But what you can then do is push those macros into an Excel spreadsheet to actually mimic the entire project. You can then delete or make changes through the Excel spreadsheet, import it in as a project, and it will create all the schematics for you. So what this now takes you into that aspect of being able to copy with an insertion point, I can make this into an entire macro, but when I do, I can copy it with an insertion point and have it at the origin. Now if I have it at the origin, now everything is always going to be aligned on a page for where I want it to be, or if I want it to be moved, I can then do so, but I've always got that standard point to be able to go to. Anybody want to actually see that Excel automation? I can, yes, sir, you would, of course you would. The point being is that you can actually take that into an entire other realm where now all of a sudden those macros that were in that library, you can now create an entire project without ever creating a schematic. You could actually do it straight from an Excel spreadsheet and have the software create it for you. It's actually a really cool feature. It does take a little bit to set up the first time because you do have to have the projects and the macro set up to begin with. But once you have that first one done, excuse me, creating any other project is absolutely a breeze, especially if you've got those sister projects that you're just wanting to move or change specific manufacturers. Maybe you know anything that was Allen Bradley is supposed to now be Schneider. That type of situation. It's very easy to do a quick search and replace and drop it back in and be done with it. So really cool features, really, really neat. So that is the just a brief synopsis there of what the Excel automation is like. But we're talking about the copy insertion point. Now, as you know, SolidWorks, we can take it into the 3D realm. I know a lot of you aren't doing that at this point, but if you actually get back into the SolidWorks 3D area, what you have available is when you are creating those cabinet layouts. Before it used to say 2D cabinet layout and it said 3D cabinet layout. Well, I hate to tell you, but most of us aren't necessarily building a cabinet. You're building some type of assembly in 3D, so why not label it as assembly? They have assembled, or they have created it now as assembly, but what this allows you to do is before you could create these models, and these models would then be a sub-assembly like, I've talked to people about locations before. We've got the locations for organizing this in the software. Those locations are actually assemblies. Every location is an assembly. So therefore, a sub-location is a sub-assembly. So if you're dealing with a panel, you have either a sub-assembly of the subplate, of the door, maybe of the side of the cabinet. You can actually create those different pieces, each sub-assembly, and then when you come to the next level, you don't have to rebuild those. You can just actually bring in each piece to make the top assembly. And as you make a change in the small subassembly, it's going to update all the way up, which is really kind of a nice aspect. But the other thing that you might want to do is, of course, start off with something that your mechanical guys have already built. Well, before, what you would do in SolidWorks is that you would actually go into SolidWorks, you would start an electrical assembly, and then you would say, insert mechanical model. You don't have to do that anymore. Now you can actually select which mechanical model, which mechanical assembly you are working from. So if you are routing a harness inside of a frame or inside of a cabinet, you can take their mechanical assembly, and that's where you will start out without having to go find it and insert it. It will automatically start there with that assembly and then build your electrical part subassembly in it. So this gives you some added functionality as well. And then, of course, it also gives you a destination if you are copying it into the project. Most likely you are not. You are not wanting to make a copy of it, which there is a setting in the software that you do need to make sure that you have turned off, and that is under the tools here, under the application settings. There is this 3D tab. You need to make sure that you are unchecking these boxes, because when you are unchecking it, you are no longer making a copy and putting it into your project. You are leaving them where they are. If you're using a data management system, you don't want a copy made. You want to keep it in the data management system. I'm sorry?
You'll get two.
You will get two, and you don't want two. You want only one, because if somebody makes a change to it, you want to make sure your assembly gets updated as well. So that's where that is at for those of you that might be looking at getting into the 3D realm. But so this is where, of course, creating that 3D model becomes a little bit easier, because before it would come up with this imaginary number and you had no idea what that was, but you could change it. But you had to change it in the software. What I'm referring to, I'm going to go right back to that for a minute just to show you what I'm talking about. So when I am here and under the process and I'm going to create this assembly, if I uncheck, let's just create that first one here. And I'm going to go ahead and just say OK. When I double click on this, of course, it gives me a quick error, which is just a little glitch that they've got in the software right now. Still fires everything off, though. But it comes up and creates an assembly. Give it a second here. Even with solid state computers, mine's just a tad bit slow. All right, so the feature tree, notice it comes up with this 51302 number. Doesn't mean anything to me. Not a darn thing. However, I can come and go to my insert component, find an existing part or assembly. So if I were looking in my mechanical stuff, so maybe, let's see here, under my electrical parts, I might have something here. All right, here's a panel that I can just go ahead and drop in. But, of course, this is, okay, it looks like, yep, I got a little bit of a printed circuit board and everything in this one. But now I start my subassembly here with, okay, now I'm going to drop in my electrical components. Now, any of the electrical components that I've got in here, obviously this is not exactly the same thing. The manufacturer is already inserted in the subassembly. All right. So let's check everything that's hidden so that way I don't have to try and figure out what I don't have created yet. Hide. All right. Okay, we've got a light right here. That doesn't have a manufacturer, so let me go ahead and assign one real quick. All right, so now I've got a 3D model that I can even insert anything. Doesn't even matter what I insert here. Grab a light. There's a green light. So I've got a green light now. I've got 2 pieces. So in my feature tree, all I am seeing, though, is that I'm bringing those pieces in. And now that piece has some identity to it, which, of course, is this specific part. Just by looking at it, I can then see what properties or make changes to it, whatever I need, just like you can in your electrical. But, of course, this assembly, which is more along the line of what I'm looking at here, this assembly name, this 51302, no relevance. The only way to actually make that change is in the schematic, believe it or not. In the schematic over here, I can go to the properties. I can just as easily, when I highlight here, notice that I've got the properties over here. I can edit them here. Now, I've got a name file change right here. This is where I make my file change for the assembly name. All I do here is make that change. When it wants to give it to me, I can't have it open while I'm doing that. So let me go ahead and save all, because I might be using this at a later point in time for anything else that we are looking at. All right. And if this works correctly for me, which it's not going to at the moment, that file assembly, I should be able to make a change. You'll have to apologize. I don't normally do things on the fly here without testing them beforehand, but this one I did not check before I did it. I've done it many times, but this is where you are making that properties change. When you make the change here to this 51302 assembly, it then allows you to make the change for everything that is now connected to it. Hi, Phil. Hey. Phil, everybody, this is Phil Garcia. He's from Fog Filler as well. All right, let me just move on, because the next thing I want to talk to you about is this auto updating of the reports. Now, everybody knows, or you might be aware, that all of our reports are automatic. When you generate reports, it's a matter of just clicking a button saying generate the report. You make a change, though, and when you are making a change to the report, anything that you make the change to, this screen that you've got here automatically updates dynamically. So if I were to change, like that light that I just added here, if I make a change to that light, let me go ahead and do that real quick. If I make a change to that light, let me find that light. What number was that light? I have, is it 812 maybe? Can't remember. Let's look for lights. I cannot tell you. So this search is a really nice search. Notice that I can just type in anything in this search and it will find throughout my entire project and everything that I'm looking for. So now if I don't know, if I know part of a description, maybe I know a part number only, I can actually find it just by clicking a specific part. So if I were looking for Allen Bradley instead of that light, because of course I knew that it was Allen Bradley. It says no, it's not Allen Bradley. Was it ABB? Nope, not under the part. It's not under the reference. That's under the manufacturer. So I have to actually, I don't see manufacturer here. I see just the part number. So I don't know what the part number was. So I'm going to go back to LT because I know it was LT. LT gives me that light, which was 812 right here. So now I can see that search, and it actually gives me a preview here. But I can right-click, and I can either go into search it in the project, I can go to it in the browser, or I can even do a couple other things depending on what you're actually looking for. So it's highlighting it right here. So now I can make that change real quick. Let's right-click, and let's remove the manufacturer. Oh, it says that it doesn't have one to remove. Maybe that wasn't the right part that I was actually, oh, it's this one here. There we go. Remove manufacturer's parts. Yes. And now I want to go ahead and I want to assign a new manufacturer's part. So we said it was ABB. Let's change it to something else other than ABB. How about LeGrand? How about LeGrand Green? There we go. All right, select that. Now when I go back into that report, of course, the first thing that I see is that no longer do I have that ABB part here. Double check that. Nope, don't have it here. But I've got that green light here. All right, when I'm generating a drawing, though, I'm taking a picture of that report. So when I'm taking a picture of the report, that's meaning that I'm now taking a picture of it in time. So if I make another change, this picture, this drawing, may not necessarily update. So let me look at that here. When we are looking at that document, in this area here, let me close that. All right, so we have these parts, and here's the Legrand, here's that green light right there. All right, now, if I make a change, now, you can either hit the update button, but how much do you really look at the bill of materials while you're actually designing? Probably not a whole lot. You're probably just waiting till you're producing it to the customer, and you want to make sure it's correct, right?
I'll refer to it fairly often.
Will you? Okay.
Well, we have specs.
Sure. Okay. Well, you can. There is a process here that you can actually do when you are setting up the project that now says right here, updated generate drawings. Do you want to, whether it's ask me, never update, or always update? This is referring to whenever you close out this project. It is either going to always automatically update all the generated drawings for you, so you don't have to remember to hit the update button.
Terminal scripts, bill of materials.
Any report.
Okay.
Any report that you have generated as a drawing will no longer wait for an update button if you are closing out the project. Right. It will automatically update the minute that you close that specific project. So in that case, now all of a sudden, if you made changes, you don't have to worry, did I hit that update button? It's going to automatically do that for you.
But if in the course of doing your project, you want to check your update, you still got to poke update.
Yes.
Right click.
Yes, you would just hit the update button and do that. So it's giving you that option, though, that you never had before of being able to automatically update it without needing that button on the way out. Yes. Okay. So that's where that comes into play. Now, of course, we're talking about revision clouds. Revision clouds, some people, it's an old AutoCAD thing. Some people make changes. So, of course, when you are making a change to a drawing, you would simply come in here, and before, when you would do a draw or a modify, you would have to use these polylines or arcs in order to create a revision cloud. In 17, they now give you free-handed clouds, elliptical clouds, or rectangular clouds. So now you don't need to worry about, now you can just create this specific area that you are wanting to create. And there you go. Hit the check mark, and it is now done. It is strictly a dumb graphic. You can now add a little A for your revision cloud to say, here's the change. You can change the color and everything else to it just like you could before, but now at least it doesn't take you 1/10 of the time to actually make a revision cloud, where before it was just a nightmare. You never did.
It was a revision box.
It was a revision box, yes, because, yes, you didn't have that AutoCAD function or that CAD function that you were looking for. So this gives you, you know, it's, like I said, some of these are toys. They are just little features that make life just a little bit easier. So that is what I'm referring to here as far as the revision cloud. Now, this property CAD for CAD entity property panel for CAD entities. What they are referring to is any piece of dumb graphics. You now have over on the right hand side here a properties panel that you can now make changes to this on the fly without having to always do the right click to get to it. So anywhere now when you are dealing with any type of piece, now notice even now that I've grabbed the symbol. If I grab the dumb graphics first, notice that I've got this text now, or this symbol that now has other information, where if you were just to highlight this, and then you would see now that I have these properties, but I also have this graphics panel that has some information to it. You can actually get to more of it even when you're dealing with text, because text is one of the big ones. When you are adding text, The first thing that I've always found is that when I'm adding any kind of text, if it doesn't quite add up to what I'm looking for, maybe this is too large, too small, I can now even get into the width factor so that I can actually make this narrower if I need it to fit into a specific box. Where before, that always was a right click, having to get into it, couldn't get to it until I actually did some, got into the properties of this specific piece, because when I was dealing with this, I couldn't get to the width of when I was dealing with the title blocks. Attributes, if you've ever played around with the attributes of a title block, are kind of a fun thing to deal with and kind of not so fun. Because when you are dealing with an attribute of a title block, so I have standard text, which might be this rev here. And in the rev, I can actually change my width factors to be 0.8. Now when I change it to the 0.8, you see that it does change it just a little bit, but I could never get the attributes to do the same thing, because if I wanted them to be narrower, I couldn't do it. There was no such thing as a width factor for the attributes. When you deal with a normal attribute and highlight it and go to right-click properties, you only get height, rotation, color, and layer. That was it. By cheating, I can highlight the text, which gives me all of these, and now when I go to the attribute, I now have all the same type of aspects. So I can cheat by getting into it now, and I can actually change the width factor of that specific that specific attribute the same way. Couldn't do that before. You could, but it was a lot more difficult. So just some things, and it's more for cleanup. If you like things to be, I'm very anal. I like things to be very lined up. I like it to always fit in the box. It's just, that's just me. But that's some of the ways that you can actually get around some of this here. I'm not going to change that because I sure as heck don't want to update my title block and then, yes, sir?
You have like a property painter tool where you can grab properties and want it inherited to the sequentially selected view.
Sure. When you were in the title block, any of those attributes, yeah, when you were in the title block, any attributes that you had, you can do the copy-paste. The one thing that I found, though, is that if you, now mind you, I didn't save this, but yes, I can right-click and I can copy the properties,
Okay.
and then I can apply the copied properties. But the only thing that I don't remember, and so let's try and find that out. I'm going to change this to 0.8 again, and I don't, oh, 1.8. Okay, we'll make it 1.8. Why not? All right, and then I'm going to change this one to 1.8. Let's just really mess it up here. All right, so there's that one. Okay, now if I copy these properties, copy properties and apply, I don't think it takes the width factor. Yeah, it doesn't. It will not take the width factor into account because that's something that's not inherent in the properties of the attribute. That's actually in the graphics part of it. So those do not carry over.
Gotcha.
Good question, though. I hadn't played with that in a while, so I completely forgot about that part. So, okay, so that's what we're looking at here when I'm talking about this properties panel. Any CAD entity now has a properties panel that is available. Now, some of you have played around with the attributes, whether it's building symbols, whether it's building title blocks. There's something new that SOLIDWORKS has come out with. And for you, those of you that are on subscription, what we have available now is something that we call, let's see here if I can actually get to it without, I might have to close everything out here. This is called an electrical content creator. This is free. This is absolutely free to anyone that's on subscription. What this is, this electrical content creator, is a stripped down version of SOLIDWORKS Electrical. No license is needed. You can have interns or people that are not necessarily going to be working in the software building schematics, but you want them to start by learning how to create symbols, learn how all those attributes work. You can have them use this electrical content creator, and it works for 2016 or above. You can have them come into here and they can create library content for symbols, footprints, title blocks, or manufacturer's parts, whether it be in cables or the manufacturer's library. All you have to do is give me a yell and I will give you the download. We've got it on our FTP site. It's a 254 meg file, but you can place that on any computer. And what this allows you to do now is you can actually create those symbols, still be able to create everything you need for a new symbol or a new title block or a whatever, if you're trying to create P&ID because we don't have enough, or if you're trying to create PLC symbols because we don't have the ones you're looking for, you could have people working on that type of stuff and be able to create without having to worry about corrupting your libraries that you may already have set up. So, and then what happens is that when you are ready, or when the person is ready, they would simply highlight whichever symbols that they would be wanting to capture. They would simply archive it. And as you know, just like we create a zip file, or you can get those zip files off the electrical content portal, you would create this zip file that we will just call test here. I will simply save it. And then it allows me to either share the content onto the web if I want to share it to the web. I don't. You might probably not either. But then I can actually open that folder. And I am going to take, so from this area then, my electrical, I would come in here, go to the specific library for my symbols. And let's see, I'm going to unarchive that specific file. So I don't remember where I put it. Hopefully somebody saw where I put it. I put it under test. There it is. Test of symbols, TEW zip. I simply say OK. It will then go ahead and see that I've selected 16 symbols. It will even do the fact of being able to check if I've already got that name of that symbol. Notice what it does over here on the right. I can see what's existing, what's new. I could actually create new ones. If somebody accidentally named them wrong, I could go ahead and instead I could keep both. And I can select and highlight the rest of them to whether I want to do the same thing, do nothing, or replace it, and hit finish. It will then put them in my library for use to be able to do. But now I've got a way of auditing somebody else working without them actually impacting my production area.
So they could be working on the manufacturer parts database then?
You could be working in any area for the libraries without impacting your floating license number that you've got. Now all of a sudden you've got a way to have those other people, if you've only got one license and you're sharing it between two people, but yet you've got a third person waiting to get a license. Instead, if it's something along this line where you're just wanting to create extra pieces for the software, you can utilize this without impacting your production, without impacting your license requirement, to be able to get some more production out for the software. Just a really neat aspect that they have provided.
All right.
Backing up a free tool like that, is there anything yet that, whether it be free or a cheap license, that we can put out on the floor for CAD and builds? Right now we do all of our digital PDF prints and stuff, we hand them off, and we mark up those PDFs and hand them back, and then we go through a revision cycle like that. It's cumbersome. I just didn't know if there'd be some next.
Okay, you're talking, okay, so I know you were looking at like the Draftsight Pro.
Yeah.
Where you can actually use that Draftsight Pro to actually do the markups.
So would you be proposing then that someone out, and this is again for someone out on the floor who's actually building the cabinet, a way for them to stay in SolidWorks Electrical. So as they mark up the print, they could apply a new layer to that drawing on the fly that then I as a designer can see that big change on
Yes, it's a dumb graphic, so it doesn't necessarily put it. It doesn't put it on a different layer. I don't know if it puts it on a different layer, to tell you the truth.
Regardless of the layers, what are you proposing then?
I would say Draftsight Pro would be your best bet right now because they don't have a free tool available to make those changes. So if you were looking at Draftsight, you'll notice here that when I open up Draftsight, now I have not tested this nor turned it on, so I will have to see if this actually works. See, I've got an electrical here that I can actually go into that project manager of a specific project, make a change here. Do you still want to open it? Yes. All right. And so if it was a specific schematic, so let's open up sheet number 7. All right, now I can close this. So any type of change that I make here, so
Throw a big
if,
circle on there or something. What
Right,
you're saying
yeah,
is
so-
that's going to propagate back to.
yes, it does. So here, if let's go ahead and, I am not real good with,
Circle line scribble.
I'm terrible when it comes to this. Okay, so draw
You want a circle straight all the way over to the left.
thank you. I'm like I said, I don't play with Draftsight, so I don't really,
Down
All the way over to this side.
Hey, look, yeah, okay,
The
wow.
circle is
Hey,
below.
look, I've got that right there. Let's do that. Okay. All right.
Now we got a way to do clouds. And I
Oh
never
my
knew that.
gosh.
Where do you think they got the cloud from?
That's actually, yes,
Hey,
that
you
is
got
right.
it in Draftsight.
They got it from Draftsight. Yes, Draftsight is the backbone engine for your draw and modify commands that are in electrical. So, wow.
You need
Oh,
a pro, you need a
Oh,
licensed version
yes.
of Draftsight to do this.
all right. Yes, Draftsight Pro.
Okay.
Yeah, so now I can save it. I can go ahead and close it. Now when I come back into electrical here, let me close this, go back to page 7.
Get out.
There it is.
All right.
Okay? It does work, but you do need Draftsight Pro,
It's $100
which
or
means,
whatever.
I don't know what the price
About
is.
150.
Is it?
But yes, so they can make changes. Now this is dumb graphics,
But I think it's
so now
every
you
year.
could delete it and you could actually make the changes that you need to.
So you
But they could actually make any type of, they could write on it, they could make a note on it, anything that you would like.
When was this implemented, or when did it become available, do you know?
It was 2016.
And then, is there any way for us to password control in such a way that they can't manipulate what was currently in the schematics, but overlay whatever graphics they want to?
They can, yeah, they, even if they make a deletion from that, it will not delete in your project.
Like, for example, if you pulled up that drawing and you deleted one of the wire lines.
Right. Let's actually do that. So that way, we can do exactly what you're asking. Give it a second here to open back up. All right. So, if we are looking at this, so let's open up that project again. All right. So here we have it. We're going back into sheet number. Let's do sheet number 8 since 7 and 8 are already open. All right. So I've got sheet 8 open. Is currently used. Okay, I can't do that one. All right, so let's cannot open it. Do I want to tell myself that I can't open it? Cancel. All right, I've already got it open. Here we go. Okay, so if I were to try and take this and delete it,
You don't want to do a wire as well, or PLC wire.
Blow all your I/O away. Yeah, just kill it.
kill this, kill that. All right, let's just kill that. All right, and I'm just going to file save it, and I'm going to come back to here, and let's come back into the software, and now sheet number 8. Okay, so it is still there. They didn't actually impact the graphics part of it because they tried to delete something. They would actually need, because this is software driven for the SQL, it's going to rebuild it anyway, no matter what. So they would only be able to make notes with dumb graphics. They could not physically delete anything out of the project.
Yeah, but that's pretty powerful. And the guys have got a tool to scribble on. And
Yes.
then we crack it back open again. And
Yes,
oh,
and so the easiest thing to do would be to have them do something like when they are in their area, instead, they could cross out and say, no, this shouldn't be here.
who is the moron that put this in here?
Right, yes, but be able to add the text and stuff along that line that you could utilize, and then you could simply just delete it very quickly. But yet they won't be able to impact your project enough that they break it.
Right. Oh, that's super slick. And then this might be a future request for later, but since you brought this up, is there any method for me as a designer to come into a project from the top level and know where any comments have been added or not? Or do I have to go through each sheet?
I don't know. I'd have to check on that one. Let me make a note of that and check, because that would make perfect sense that you would be able to pull up some type of log that says this sheet has been, from Draftsight, has been, touched upon. So let me look into that one and I can get back to you. Draftsight. All right. Okay. So that's kind of where I was going with all of that. So back to where we were here. And let's just continue from that current slide. Let's see, we already did all of those. So I still didn't show you this attribute insertion. We were talking, or the attributes. So now that I've gotten off on a squirrel, imagine that. Yeah. Yeah, it's all right. It happens all the time. All right, so I was talking about title blocks. We were inside the title block. We went off on, how you can actually do some other good fun stuff here. So let's open up that title block again. Because, of course, as you see, this title block looks pretty darn foreign if you're looking at this. Now, in the past, I've always said, okay, I can cheat by opening up Insert Attribute, and I can see what the attribute description is, but of course it was never very easy for me to find. I was always trying to search for specifics. What they have added here in 2017 is the fact that we have this drop-down called Show Attribute. And what it allows you to do is, one, when you are working strictly in the graphics, you can turn off the attributes. Hide them all. Work on the graphics only. This works in both title blocks and in symbols. I can turn off everything and work on just the graphics. When I'm done with the graphics, now I can turn the attributes back on. But, of course, when I turn them back on, of course, I have to hit the Show Attributes. When I turn them back on, they're still foreign to me. I now can go ahead and hit Show Attribute Description. And it tells me exactly what it is. So now I don't have to deal with cheating to find out what those attributes are. I can also look at the fact of instead giving me some sample values so that it will show me what the text looks like in the title block. So that way I can see, is the width going to be good? Is it not going to be good? Do I want a different color, different size, different font? I can make those changes now just by being able to see what it's going to look like. So this button is what they have added here to allow you to have that flexibility to not have to cheat by going into the insert attributes to be able to find it. So again, just another little toy just to make life just a little bit easier. All right, so that's where I was trying to get with this show attributes on the title block and these symbols. Okay, next is one of my favorites, the propagation of I/O to the wires and terminals. Now, this one is definitely where a lot of people have asked for this, and it took a little while to get, but this one is actually fairly large on my view. Now, if you look at this specific PLC, now yes, we've already garbaged it up a little bit. I can make a change to this PLC to actually show. You can use, under your project, you have the channel configuration of your PLC here. And notice it is specifically calling out the PLC channel address. In 2017, SP2, they have fixed this so that the top PLC actually works all the way down through all of the PLCs to give you this address. Now, this address right now is not exactly what I want, so I'm going to make the change manual. So I'm going to come in here and go to my PLC, and I'm going to make an edit. Now, that is, which one is that one, just so that I get it right? That is IB. IB is where that one is at. Because I always seem to do this, and when I do it, I end up getting the wrong one, and so then it doesn't show right, and then it kind of looks funny. Okay, so here's this one that I'm looking at right here. Now, it says that the physical address is IB, but this address here is 00:.B. Well, I don't like that. I'm going to modify this channel address to put in something that I like, which is more along the lines of my standard that I've always gone with. Maybe it's rack 0, and maybe this is 15. I don't know if this is actually correct, but this is what I'm going to use. Now,
It's PLC 5. Sure.
it's PLC 5. I'm still old school. What can I say? All right. I could have it say, be the global variable, whatever the case is. Anyway, the point is that this is what I've got now, is this 015. I want my wire number to be that number, and I don't want to have to type it in. Because if I do an entire PLC, I've spent enough time making sure that the PLC is correct, that I want the wire numbers to now match. I don't care if it's input or output. I want them to match. We have this tool. It's not a tool. Where is it? It is under Process, called Propagate Data to Connected Objects. What this allows me to do is, for my whole project or just for a specific portion of it, I can add a propagation. I am going to copy from my PLC. This will open up in 2018, but right now it's strictly just these specific categories. My PLC channel address, and I want the mark of that PLC address, so that channel address there. I want to push that to the equipotential, and I want to push it to the mark. When I say OK here, notice that my wire number has now changed for all of them.
What was that last option that there to the mark? What is it?
Okay, so this is the wire mark for this wire coming in through here.
The very last one, though, you made us, did you had something to choose the equipotential and then,
Oh, equipotential or wire.
but then the destination off?
Yeah, when I come to here, if I have equipotential and wire, and then under this one, there was only the mark, I believe. Oh, and user data.
What is that?
The user data?
Oh, like user data for the.
0 through 20, those user data fields. So, if you were looking at wanting, if you were looking at the, this wire here, and if I right-click on that wire and go into the wire, let's see, it's going to be under my wire properties for that wire. Oops.
Would it be the dental properties?
No. Here under Customize, you've got user data down here, user data 1 and user data 2. You've got that possibility of creating up to 20 fields here that you could have pushed that number into that area instead. So that's what that is referring to here. But now I can actually take this even one step further. This is, right now, this is terminal. Let me grab that one right there. That is, I am under the X3 terminal strip for all 3 of these terminals, actually all 6 of these terminals. But what I want to do is I now want that terminal to be that wire number throughout my entire project. And I don't want to have to type it in. Unfortunately, as you know, in the past you've had to type it in or create something that would do this for you. Now what you can do is propagate one more time, and I can take and add another propagation of my equipotential wire number. So taking that mark, I can now push that directly to, because of course terminal is the only selection I can do at this point. And I can do the same, I don't want mark. I want mark. Mark. Come on, get mark.
Voice commands don't work.
Yeah, one of these days they will. And again, I can hit OK, and now it will actually push that wire number to the terminal.
Hot dog. so all we gotta do is just throw what terminal strip it's on. And then now you actually took, your source for this whole world was your I/O address, which you then propagated that to the wire, which you then propagated to the terminal.
Correct.
You pull that up in the terminal strip manager and see what that looks like?
Yeah.
I sure can. No, I've got some
You've
other stuff
cable
going on.
cores and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
I got other stuff going on all over the place. So, like I said, this wasn't a project that I had set up for this. So,
Do you do like a terminal list as a report?
do I? No, not normally. Can you? Sure.
That's how we've been doing it for the panel building.
Let's see. So under project, under reports, you're talking about like a list of terminals.
Yeah, just at detail X3, you know.
Let's see here. List of terminal strip tags. There's that one. Let's see, what other one do I have? That
We've
is-
done it. You don't have to worry about it. But
Oh.
I can see where that would be. Now you've got a wonderfully chunked out terminal strip detail, which you could then pull the data
You're right.
for terminal strip printing.
Yep. Exactly.
Where's
So
your
yeah.
I/O? Is your
So
I/O
here
buried
is
in
the
there?
terminal strip, and it's got terminal strip numbers for some of those there. So the ones that didn't have wire numbers or something
If you
looks like
click
it's
on
where.
X3, is it buried in it? Is that a hyperlink?
Actually, yes, this is something that's another hyperlink. This is another actually cool thing that's later here. I can actually take that directly to that component and go to it. Or
I'm
here.
squirreling. Sorry.
I'm sorry?
I'm squirreling.
No, actually, this is another this is another enhancement that you can now take any of your tables, whether it be design rule checks or whether it be any of those reports, you can now hyperlink them to either go directly to the browser here, go to the drawing, or go directly to the specific unit, or go directly into the properties to change the manufacturer. So from that bill of materials, before, you know how you could always come to here, you could right click and you could say go to a specific piece, and so if I went to that piece, it would take me to that piece, and now 604 disconnect, I could right click and I could say go to again, and I could go to the next one. I can now do that from any of my reports, which means while I'm in the report, especially if I'm not using sheet number, row number for identification to find it, I can now instead just use that linked from the report. Anything that is blue here, I can just right click and it will tell me what it wants to do. Do you want to go to the terminal strip line drawing? Do you want to go to the component? And it takes me directly to that component. And so I can do that from any report. So even here, if I'm looking at this, and I am looking at maybe this part. Now notice I don't have anything blue set up yet. This is something that you set up a hyperlink for. So in this column here, notice that there is this go-to statement here. You would actually put in the variable that you want it to follow by. So if I'm looking at the component ID here, maybe as far as the specific link, maybe it's a component. Say OK, apply, and then go ahead and close that. So now all of a sudden I do have that available. So of course I didn't quite do it right, but yeah, you create your own links for those reports that aren't there, but you've got that capability now of being able to jump back and forth.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I've got other bills of materials that do already have that in there. 17 created a bunch more reports that now have those hyperlinks available to you, which we'll look at here in a minute. But yeah, squirrel, that's one for the next hour. All right, and then of course the next one that we've got here is this additional color. Now, what you have with this additional color, you may or may not have noticed, before everything was black when we were dealing with it. So if I was in this component, you would notice right now you can see which sheet I am on, because not only is it bold, but it's also blue. Before everything was black. And so now you can easily tell that anything that is blue, of course with this lighting it's very hard to tell, but you can see that I've got sheet 13 open here, I've got sheet 8, sheet 7, sheet 6 is the one that I'm physically viewing at this very moment. So that additional color becomes even more critical when you are doing more than one project at a time, because now you can at least tell which sheets you've got open from which project, because of course you can intermix sheets when you are working on them.
Yeah.
And so of course now you've got at least a little bit more control by being able to see that additional color to be able to tell which sheet is where, as far as being able to identify what you're working on. All right, and let's see here. One last thing is this cable core naming. So cables have always been somewhat of a heartache for me, because of course they've always been very rigid as far as how things were named. They are getting more flexible. Service Pack 3 and 4 are going to be out very shortly. 2 just came out back at the end, February 13th. Service Pack 2 gave you some more functionality. Service Pack 3, they've already assured me, and I've already seen some of it, there's even more functionality coming in Service Packs 3 and 4. One of the big things is EPDM. They have completely revamped it, which is really kind of cool. But anyway, back to this. What we are looking at here now with cable cores. So if I'm looking at a cable core, notice right now it just says W6, it says black, brown, black, blue. To me, that's just not enough information. I want to know more of what's going on here. What we've got available now under the project configuration, and it's surprisingly enough, it's not under the marks. It is actually under the fonts. Why under the fonts, I can't tell you. But notice right here, I now have formulas available for the scheme cable cores and the line diagram cables, so that I can add formulas now where I can do origin destination naming for cables. Notice right now though it says origin location tags, or origin location and destination location tags. We don't have components just yet. Those are coming. So they have added this whole area, which you did not have before, so you can now change how things are made here, even by the double slashes, or you can add other characters, where before it was forced to only be this type of scenario. So if somebody wanted to actually make any type of change to that cable core formula, you did not have control of that. You had to actually make a change in your cable to say maybe the part number and then the specific core, and then was it wire number 1, wire number 2, wire number 3. You had to do all of that inside the cable, which if you're looking at the cable itself, what I'm referring to here, let me look at that cable and I will show you what I am talking about. The wire, let's see, how do I want to do the cable properties here for W6. All right, so this information that you've got right here is pretty straightforward, but it gives you this reference part number. And this reference part number is where it was getting its brown, its black, its blue. So if I take that number there, and I don't know if I can actually highlight it, 1000 R2V. So let me go to my library, 1000 R2V. Okay, come on, close. All right, library, go to my cable references, and I am going to, I don't even know where it was. Oh, do it this way. 1000 R2V, and it wasn't under unclass, so let's see which one it was under. R2V, it wasn't under section, it was under all. Come on. Where was it? I could swear it was under R2, 1000 R2V. Maybe it wasn't a dash. I bet you there was no dash. Bet you it was a space. There it was. There is a software enhancement for intelligence, because these searches to me are very too rigid, too structured. So you can't find things easily, especially if you make a typo, where it still should have been able to find something along that line, even if there was a, I asked for a dash and maybe there wasn't. But so when you're looking at this cable, if I look at the properties, where it's coming up with those cable colors is right here. you tell it which cable color you want. So if I tell it brown and I tell the next one maybe that it is a different color here, of course, then if I'm dealing with the fact of two colors, you can see I got a green yellow here, but if I'm also dealing, if I'm dealing with this one, maybe it's a blue wire, or let's say a blue wire here with a white stripe, you would simply come in here and tell it that it was blue with a secondary color of white. And that's how this would show up. Just the exact naming would be what shows up in your report here. That was the only thing that you could do. So now with the use of that extra formula, you now have that flexibility of being able to take it one step further, add extra text, maybe add the part number, maybe add the specific conductor number, where you didn't have that capability before. All right, so here, that is what I was talking about with the cable core naming. That's as far as I'm going to go here. We've got 5 minutes left before 7 o'clock already. It's already been so much fun. I can tell everybody's just excited as ever. And I will continue with more toys on the second half, if you want to come back and join. Now, I know there's great chocolate chip cookies over there for you to go enjoy.
Good question.
Sure.
What was the program you referenced with the people on the floor?
Draftsight.
Draftsight.
Draftsight, and it is Draftsight Professional is the license that you would need. Draftsight by itself is free. Draftsight Pro does have a small cost to it.
Going further afterwards in that session?
Yep.
Just Q&A or
No, it's more what's new that you haven't seen before.
service pack 2?
It's Service Pack 0 even, but that's all in 17.
Okay.
I had a quick question.
Sure, Joe.
So outside of the terminal manager, is there a fast way to change, like a right-click option? I know with symbols and stuff, you can highlight all of them, go in, and under component, you can do change location, right? Is there a quick way to do that with terminals outside of the terminal manager?
We'll look at that after lunch or after
Sweet.
break.
So that was one of the things that I was struggling with today. I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll just go into the terminal the terminal strip manager,
Yep.
and change the location on. I had like 6 of the strips that I had to change the location on, and I was
yep.
like, all right, well, I guess because I highlighted all of it and changed the components, but and when I went back in to start doing line diagrams and whatnot, it was like, all right, well, where am I?
Where'd they go? Where'd they go? Yep.
And they were still in that original location.
Okay. Yep. We can look at that.
Sweet.
Well, I wasn't expecting to see you. Thanks for coming out, Ben.
Yeah, that was good. Super excited about the Draftsight thing.
Oh, me too. Yeah, the Draftsight thing is actually really cool. It takes you a minute to actually figure out how it works, but once you figure out how it works, yeah, it's straightforward. And I know you were looking into it, so I thought you had already seen how it worked.
No, we were looking at it for something else. You had the ability to quickly jump between Draftsight and SolidWorks. I told you wanted to do simple editing. There are certain features of Draftsight that you still can't get through SolidWorks right now. That's what we were looking for the Pro.
Oh, gotcha.
That's where that add-in would be.
Yeah, gotcha. So yeah, that would just benefit you even further.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll be able to make it to the second one, but
Okay.
I'm interested to see what's going on. Will you be able to? Will this be distributed as a webinar later on, or not?
Actually, yes. If